Good afternoon and welcome to this Valpak webinar. So today we're going to be looking at a new software service and I will be talking you through that service, looking at its different functions and how that might help you. So my name's Steph Haynes, I'm an account manager here at Valpak. Through talking to various contacts within organisations who deal with producer responsibility regimes, that might be packaging, wheel, batteries, we are aware that often those contacts in those organisations, like yourselves, wear multiple hats. And you often have a broad remit that might cover waste, compliance, quality, or financial budgets, and often much, much more. So this piece of software brings together those responsibilities and we hope will help make your role and your remit more efficient and hopefully save you some time and a bit of money. So this new software service is called Valpak Waste Manager and it's been in development for around a year now and it's been tested by a number of Valpak members of different sizes and from different sectors, industry sectors. They've provided some feedback and off the back of that we've done a bit more development. We've got a development list that we are working our way through. So this is always evolving and we're always open to your thoughts and feedback. And we've also developed a number of packages to suit various budgets that might be interested in using this as a service. And I'll talk about those packages a little bit more at the end of this webinar. I'm going to talk for around about 30 minutes to 40 minutes, and at the end of that we'll have a Q&A session. So on the right-hand side of your screen you should see a question and answer box. If you've got any questions as we go through, feel free to type those questions into there and we'll look at them at the end of the webinar and we will allow some time for that and I will do my best to answer those questions. So I'm going to talk you through the Waste Manager and the packages that we have. Waste Manager does a vast many different functions for managing waste. But for today's purposes, we're going to cover the key functions of training, compliance, and improving on performance. And we're going to start with compliance. Now, we're talking about compliance in terms of two key areas that this system can help you with. The first is helping you to build a duty of care audit trail. Now that's in case you might have an Environment Agency inspector on your doorstep, having the right paperwork to be able to demonstrate you meet your legal duty of care as a producer of waste. The second area of compliance that Waste Manager will help with is ISO 14001. In fact, the whole platform follows a standardized environmental management system logic that mirrors the process that you may be familiar with if you do have ISO 14001. If you're starting thinking about it, it would certainly be a good system to help stand you in good stead for that accreditation, and you'd then be quite used to the environmental management process that is employed for that standard. So for those of you who aren't familiar or haven't started a journey on ISO 14001 yet, let me just tell you a little bit about it so it will put into context the process that this system employs. So the first thing about ISO 14001 is knowing your potential as a business for environmental harm, where your environmental risks are. This is known as your aspects for ISO, and in this system you'll be entering your different waste streams and highlighting whether they are hazardous and have the potential therefore for environmental harm. The second thing that we'll be doing is looking at the legislation that affects your business and how do you stay up to date with that legislation and ensure that you comply with it. Finally, for ISO, you also need to look at your current performance and track and monitor that performance and set some meaningful targets on how you intend to improve on it. This system has a very similar process to that. So let's take those one at a time. Let's start with compliance and look at your potential for environmental harm. Now, within Module 2 of Waste Manager, you will enter your waste streams, but before you do that, you might be a multi-site. You might have just one single site that you have responsibility for in your group, or you may be a single standalone site. Either way, you need to enter your site details and your address. The system can cope with multiple sites, as many as you might have. We'd always recommend that you talk to us about the way in which those are set up on Waste Manager, because it does link to the reporting that you get out of the system, and it needs to be meaningful for how you report at board level. That might be by division or group or product line, or by individual site or legal entity. So we can set that up to mirror that, and the reporting system will then be meaningful for you. So in this section, you're going to enter your sites, give them a name. It might be head office or production. Give them their address, and also link it to the responsible person. That might be the warehouse manager. It might be yourself on each of those sites. The next thing we're going to do is enter your waste streams. Now, this is a demonstration system, so I've already set it up with a number of waste streams in here, which you can see on the left-hand side. EWC codes. This is the European Waste Catalogue code. Might sound scary that you've got to find the EWC code for your waste if you don't already know it. I'm just going to press the little plus button at the top here, which will allow me to add a new waste stream, and I'll show you a nifty little trick that the system does. So in here, I'm going to enter waste batteries. When I click on the EWC code box and I begin typing batteries, it automatically gives me a list of all the EWC codes that apply to waste batteries, depending on their chemistry type. So for here, I'm going to say that I've got nickel-cadmium batteries. Now, you'll have noticed to the right-hand side of the EWC is the hazardous column. Now, it's automatically ticked that NiCads are hazardous waste, so the system knows that no matter how you present those to a carrier for taking from your site, they will always be known as hazardous waste. So if I try and click on that box, it won't allow me to untick it. It is an absolute entry as a hazardous waste for that EWC code. Where it's highlighted in blue, it actually means that that waste material might be hazardous. It's known as a mirror entry, so it could well be hazardous or it might not be hazardous. So you need to tell the system, and you will be able to select or unselect whether it is or isn't hazardous. And that depends on how you're presenting it. So for example, electronic equipment, there will be certain types of electrical equipment, your display screens, that would be hazardous. However, you might not have that particular type of equipment within your collection that you're raising from your site. So it may be non-hazardous. It's worth bearing in mind that if any hazardous equipment is mixed in with non-hazardous, the whole collection load is likely to be classified as hazardous waste, and it will cost you a bit more to treat and have taken away. So we've done that. We've entered our waste streams, and there is no way around this. You do need to manually enter your waste streams into there. Enter an EWC code, which it will do automatically, whether it's hazardous, and then we're going to assign a site. Obviously, if you've only got one site, you'd only have one. The waste are arising, so if it was paper and it's arising at all of your sites, you can tick multiple ones or select all. Okay, I'm going to save that. So I've told the system what sites I've got, and I've told it what waste streams I've got. So I'm starting to identify my environmental impact as a waste producer. If I press this button at the bottom here, this bar is our navigation bar, and this is the calendar-looking icon here. It takes us back to the control panel previously, so it's like a back button. It's also worth noting the CIWM logo here in the middle at the top. We've put that logo on there because CIWM actually have accredited the training packages that are integrated into this platform, which we'll look at later. However, this is where your corporate logo would sit. Okay, so I've done my waste streams and I've done my sites through here. It's also important to put in the stakeholders. Now, by stakeholders, we mean a responsible person in your business. So you want to list who those people are and their responsibilities. So their job titles, their key responsibilities. Bearing in mind that, and we'll come on to why this is important later, you might have compliance responsibilities and separate financial responsibilities, for example. As I say, we'll pick up on those later on. Now you'll need to tell the system what waste contractors you have that take your waste away. You need to manually enter in the company name, their address, postcode, and of course if you've got contact details for a specific person in that organisation, it's always well worth writing this in here. This is also really important from a handover point of view. If this ever no longer becomes part of your remit, the next person will be able to book onto a training course and contact Valpak for instructions on how to use the software, but the information's all there for them as to who to contact at the various organisations you deal with. I've entered my waste contractors. I'm now going to enter my waste facilities. Now, this is the one that often trips up most businesses that we speak to. You will undoubtedly know what waste contractor visits your site and takes your waste away. But do you know what facility they take your waste to? It's part of your duty of care, your legal responsibility as a producer, to know how your waste is being treated and where, and to ensure that the facilities where it is being treated for final recovery or disposal are appropriately accredited and permitted. So we've entered the facility name. If you ask your contractor, your carrier, most of the time they shouldn't have any issue with providing you with this information. Enter the facility name. What type of facility is it? Now, this is important for the reports that this system will give you, and we'll look at in a moment. Is it recycling? Is it perhaps looking at incineration with energy recovery? Is it a materials recovery facility or landfill? And there's various other options in there. So what type of facility is that? And which sites are they servicing? So waste from which sites? Okay. So we've identified the key players taking and dealing with your waste from your site within this compliance section, and we've identified the key players within your organisation that have responsibilities linked to that waste. Part of your duty of care also is looking at, perhaps at auditing either your own waste in your business and how you're presenting that waste for collection, and also auditing contractors or waste facilities if you're able to visit those. Within this audit tools template, this audit tools section, are a number of templates that could really help you when you're doing those audits in terms of what to look out for. They're downloadable documents that you can then print off and have to walk around with. So let's go back to ISO for a moment. We've identified what's happening on your site and therefore the various wastes that you have, whether they're hazardous or not. We now need to identify the legislation that applies to you. This system will automatically do that for you within this section. So it identifies a number of priority laws here. These are generic laws, generic environmental laws that are sort of capture all persons. Things like the Environment Act, for example. All businesses need to be aware of this and should probably have reviewed this. Okay, so if we click on one of these, let's go for hazardous waste. It gives you a synopsis here of the regulations to save you actually having to read the whole thing. It then gives you some Valpak guidance, which should help explain whether the regulation is relevant to you or not. If you're in any doubt or you want to see the full text, this orange link here is a link straight to the actual full text for you, so you can read the regulation in full. Now, an important part of the environmental management system is not just tracking legislation, but actually stating whether it impacts on your business, and if it does, doing something about it. So is this applicable to me? I'm going to say it is applicable to me because this company I'm representing here handles hazardous waste. Am I compliant? Yes. I think I'm compliant, and my justification, we produce a variety of hazardous waste, all handled by permitted contractors with consignment notes for each collection. So I've checked and I'm happy I'm compliant. Okay, so I'm going to save that and come back out of that. If I was to then click back into it and go to hazardous waste, where I once had an egg timer which was telling me I needed to review that legislation a moment ago, because I've reviewed it and I've written a justification, I've now got nice green ticks there. So you don't need to review it all at once. You can dip in and out of it until you've got a full list of green ticks. Now, it also has a section called Specialist Waste Law, and this is important because it links directly to what waste you entered as being produced on your site or sites. So this is things like waste batteries and accumulators. Now that's because we said that we had nickel cadmium batteries arising on site, so therefore the waste batteries and accumulators regulations are applicable to us. Again, you can click on that, write your justification, and my egg timer box would go green. Now where I've got a red cross appearing here on the right-hand side, it means the status of that legislation has changed, and it's warning you to review that legislation. So legislation does change quite regularly, and this is a way of flagging to you that you need to review that change and look at it again. What Valpak also does is provide within this section a quarterly summary of the legislation. So if we just click on January to April, you can get a summary for the whole quarter of the various regulations that changed and what that means. And that could be circulated around your business. Okay. So let's just go back. Your legal register, so your legislation monitoring and those justifications you put in, this generates a legal register for your company. Now, if I were to click this link, I would get a PDF document that tells me all of the regulations that I've reviewed and the impact on the company, and all of my justifications, so what's been done, the process that's been employed to ensure compliance with those regulations. And it would be a PDF document. So every time you review a piece of legislation within this section, that PDF document automatically updates in real time. And it will save to a documents file within this system, which I'll talk you through in a moment. So you've always got a live working document that's always up to date automatically, so you don't need to keep a PDF or a Word document up to date. So we've identified the waste streams, your sites and your processes, and we've identified the legislation that applies to you. What we now need to look at doing is looking at your duty of care and formulating that duty of care compliance loop. So within Module 5, there's actually a shortcut that will demonstrate to us what the system's trying to build in the way of a picture to demonstrate your duty of care should you be required to do so. The sites that you entered are all here. So those are the sites that we said we had for this business. The waste streams that you entered will be located here, your waste contractors and your waste facilities. Now what the system can do is flag to you any gaps, and that's on a site-by-site basis. Of course, if you've only got one site, it'll just be one site for you to select. So I'm going to select the production plant. So this is looking at any waste, non-hazardous waste, and ensuring that you have the right paperwork for that waste. Your waste streams will automatically appear here in the left-hand side, and the EWC codes are grayed out because it's already been assigned. We've assigned those earlier. What you will need to do, and this is already pre-populated, is to select the company, the contractor that takes that waste away from your site. And then of the facilities that you entered, which one takes that specific waste, that paper? I'm going to say that goes to composting, so I've selected composting site. Do I have 2 years worth of season tickets? Now a season ticket is a waste transfer note for a regular occurrence, a regular movement of a particular type of waste from your site. Often your contractor will give you an annual ticket to cover multiple movements. So do you have 2 years worth of tickets, whether they're individual or annual? If they are annual, enter your ticket start date and an end date. Now this is really important from a compliance perspective because quite often those tickets might expire, and it's down to you to make sure that you've got an up-to-date season ticket from your waste contractor. So at least with this system, it will flag in red when that's come to an end and you need to update it. You can upload a copy of it here as well. So that will flag to me any gaps where I don't have something. It'll also do the same for any hazardous waste on site. Now we said we had nickel cadmium batteries, so we've definitely got some hazardous waste here. So who's a waste contractor? Select your waste contractor. Select your waste facility that goes to. Now in this case, The reason this system flags gaps for hazardous waste separately is that hazardous waste actually require a consignment note, and you need to hold 3 years' worth of consignment notes for every single collection of hazardous waste from your site. You can upload these again through this portal. And then we come to the Approved Route Checker. So this is telling us our waste, our contractors, we've told it what facilities, what type of facilities it was because we entered that into the facilities information. And also now it's asking you, do you know if that facility is permitted to receive your waste? This is the crucial part of duty of care. It's the end part that demonstrates you know your waste has been finally recovered and disposed of in an environmentally sound manner. So you would need to have a permit or exemption. Do you know if you have that? If not, as I said, the system does flag when things are missing in red, so it really clearly stands out for you that you've got some paperwork to find. So this whole part here is building your auditable duty of care audit trail. So if you did have an EA officer banging on your door, you can show them your audit trail, you know exactly where your waste goes to. Now I mentioned about the importance of document control earlier. On this address bar at the bottom, the icon bar, we can navigate to your documents, which is that green little icon here. So this is a cloud-based system, which means you can access it from anywhere with your unique login, and it puts your documents at your fingertips. So the one thing an EA officer is not going to feel very reassured by is having to wait 2 or 3 hours whilst you rummage around for the right piece of paperwork to show them, even if you do have it. So this system puts it all at your fingertips. So anything you upload, any document you upload in all of the sections we've looked at so far, waste transfer notes, consignment notes, permits for those facilities, there was an upload button next to it. It all gets filed automatically into that little green folder. So any audits that you do, you can file yourself into there. But the compliance documents, if we look under here, under contractor documentation, you can see this is where, when you uploaded your contractor's waste carriers licenses and where you uploaded those permits, this is where they would sit in this file. You just need to be sure to save those files by a name that means you can readily find them. So by the waste type, the facility address or contractor's address, or your site address if it's a multi-site that you're working on behalf of. So you'll save it by a file name that means that you can readily find it, and also probably a date as well so that you can order them by date. Okay, any financial documents that we upload in the next section I'm about to show you will also go into there. So your invoices will all drop into your financial documents in there. Any certificates that you might have, whether it be for ISO or otherwise, or any accreditations that your contractors have, will also be entered into there automatically. So this is your documents file, and it will file and store those automatically. So you can do an upload into any of these, and you can upload them directly from a file on your computer. So if you're using paper files, you'll need to scan them into your own computer, and you can do a mass upload, just a click and drag and drop, or you can click multiple ones and upload multiple ones. I'm not going to do that now. Okay. So what have we done so far? We know what waste you're handling, who takes it away. We've built our duty of care audit trail. We've made sure all of our documents and paperwork are in order. And we've also identified the legislation affecting the business, and we've made sure that we are compliant with that. We've ticked that compliance box. So we have peace of mind from a compliance point of view that we're meeting our legislative obligations, and we're also meeting our legal duty of care as a waste producer. If you've got ISO 14001, this will really be the cornerstone, the very foundation for you to build on that. Obviously, this is only looking at waste, and if you have other environmental aspects that you've identified as potential for environmental harm in your business, and that might be CO2 emissions from transport, for example, or potential to pollute watercourses, you will need to look at that legislation separately within your legal register. But the waste legal register here, bearing in mind there are over 80 pieces of waste legislation, so it's a very heavily regulated area of environmental law. It should make your life a lot easier, and it will certainly give you that platform from which you can leap forward and add on waste and carbon if you wanted to. So now we're going to have a look at building on that environmental management process and looking at where you are at the moment and where you want to go. So within the data collection portal, hopefully your waste contractors provide you with some information as to what they collect from your sites, where that goes, and they give you either on invoices or maybe even as a spreadsheet on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, the tonnages that they take away and the costs that they levy to you for those tonnages, and some useful information. What we would do on taking the Waste Manager service is to give you a template to send out to your contractors for that information. So they would be providing you that information on a monthly basis, and you would upload it into this system, into this data entry portal. Now, if they didn't have, or they didn't bill you by certain aspects, maybe they don't bill you a transport charge, they just bill you a total cost for per tonnage of waste collected, or they don't bill you a container rental, for example, there are columns on the template we would send you for that, but they just leave those blank. So it means that you wouldn't be editing the data that they've sent you. You wouldn't have to clean it up in any way in order to upload it. And you would find down here an import your data button as well as the export button. Now, the export button is really important, we think, because we've listened to member feedback and we know that it's really important that this data and anything you enter onto Waste Manager is your intellectual property. So at any point you can export this data as an XML spreadsheet, and the same goes for that documents file. You can cut and paste that into your own computer or your own shared drive in your business. So this is not a service that you would be locked into. If you change your mind, you choose a different software platform in the future, or you want to do this manually, you can always take all of that information with you at any point. So coming back to the data portal, this is where you'd input your figures from your waste management providers on how much they've taken from your site of different waste streams. And we can actually view that waste data if you want to do comparisons. Here again, you can upload the waste transfer notes for each of those movements if you haven't already done so, or if you have individual movements rather than season tickets, you can put them into there. You can look at the treatment processes applied. Now, this is important because we have a graph that links to this to tell you your recycling performance. And now this is going on that information you said regarding which facilities it goes to, what type of facilities were they, and that's pulling from that. Or we could just look at the financial data. Now, perhaps you might want to give a login to a financial person in your organisation and allow them to do this upload because they handle invoices linked to your contractors. That's fine. And here you can clearly see where contractors have charged you gate fees, management fees, bin hire fees, and where they just they don't apply those types of figures. And then you've also got your totals, just over here to the right-hand side, our total costs for each of those collections. You can change the date range to look at a year or a month or a week, and you can look at all sites if you're a multi-site or just one at a time. Okay. Now, all of that data links to some very nice looking graphs, which you can export into PowerPoint presentations, into your board reports, Word documents. I'm just going to change the date range on these and we'll have a look at these graphs one at a time. So I'm going to change it to the 1st of January until the end of November and just refresh that. I'm going to look at all sites, but again, I can select any one particular site and I can select any one waste stream or all waste streams to have a look at. There are 8 different graphs in total, and I'm just going to select the remaining 4 that are not showing on here now. So bear with me a moment. 4 of these graphs are financials, and the other 4 are looking at your performance from either a weight or a recycling point of view. So if we look at this first graph in the top left-hand corner, this is looking at your financial performance. Now, this also includes a target, and there are other sections of this software that, as I said at the beginning, it does a whole lot of things. There are other sections that will help you to build a waste policy and a waste strategy, and within those will help you to either enter existing targets that you might have as a business or to set targets, and it will help you to set stepping stone targets that are realistic and achievable for your business. So this company that we're demonstrating, this is their spend each month in blue. And if I hover over it, it will give me the actual figures. These are also displayed down at the bottom here as well. against what their target was. And we can see that they are spending less than their target month to month. So I'm sure their financial officer is a very happy person. On the right-hand side, we've got our hierarchy performance. Now that's showing us how much recycling we are doing, and it's based on where that waste is going. And you could actually ask the facilities what their recycling rate is achieving as well, because no doubt they'll have some waste back of their process that might be going on to incineration that might not have been recoverable. So some contamination rates. So it depends where you set it. But for the moment, this is looking at, I said it was going to a recycling facility, so it's assuming all of that's going to be recycled. But you can change that. So if I hover over it, it gives me the actual tonnage figures against my target. I had a recycling target. Okay. I might have a percentage target, and it would give me the figures on how I'm performing against a percentage target. This graph is looking at performance by cost, and if I look at this, I can see that I think it's waste oils. It's costing my business an awful lot of money. It's definitely the bulk of my waste costs. But then if I look over here, I can actually see that if I look at the weight, it's only actually 6% of the overall weight of waste is my waste oils, but they're a big cost to my business. These two graphs really help you to start to look at what are the low-hanging fruit, what are the things that you can make as changes in your business to really have an impact on cost, if that's where your focus may lie. Looking at these graphs here, we've got monthly tonnage by site. So this is really useful if you have got a multi-site organisation, because you can clearly see performance of different sites, and certainly be feeding back to the site managers as to be asking why that difference is occurring. Okay, we can also see peaks in these in monthly tonnage and also in monthly spend by those different sites. So we can see that the warehouse here, their spend peaked in February, and we can certainly be asking questions of the warehouse manager as to why that was. But we can also see that the tonnage dropped in the same month, which is a bit of an anomaly, so we might want to ask some questions on that. And again, it gives you an overview of your spend, how much money is going to gate fees or transport, for example. So would it be cheaper if you switched contractor that was locally and reduced your transport costs? So it just helps you to start asking questions of your waste carrier. We can also see down here that this company in October and November didn't receive a rebate. So certainly that would make them straight away on the phone to their waste carrier asking, why didn't I get my rebate in those months? And it might be because they had contaminated bales of plastic or something in those months, and it was above the permissible contamination rates, and therefore their rebate was not awarded. But this certainly helps you to stay on track of things and to ask the right questions, I think. As I said, you can right-click these and export these into your different documents. Okay, so we've looked at compliance, and we've looked at looking at your current performance and looking at maybe against targets. And as I say, let's just have a quick look back at the main control panel. So the policy builder here will help you to build a policy if you don't already have one in place for waste, and then you'd be able to circulate that through the business, and you can see that's a step-by-step process. If you already have one, you can upload it. And within strategy, you've also got a number of things to help you to build KPIs. So one of the things I'm going to talk about now, and I know that there's certainly somebody joining this webinar today who has asked to see more of the training modules. Within Module 1, we have a number of packages of modules here that will help you with training. Now, they are set up for you to make your way through them in a logical fashion, and they are accredited by CIWM. So it means at the end of these 9 modules, you'll get 12 hours worth of continued professional development. So if you've got a CIWM membership, you've got 12 hours of CPD that you can claim off the back of this. However, if you've been in compliance for quite a long time and you know your legislation inside and out, backwards and forwards, you might want to use this as a quick reference tool. So let's just have a quick look at basic principles. This is telling me about principles about wording, about terminology that we often use in the industry, and explaining what that is. So zero waste. We all aspire to have zero waste to landfill or zero waste. What does that actually mean for your business? What does circular economy mean? And there's links to the new circular economy packages in there. Terms like cradle to cradle, cradle to grave are all explained. At the end of each module, you can then take a quiz to test your knowledge in that module. There's 9 modules and 9 quizzes, and at the end of that, CIWM would issue a certificate to show that you have your 12-hour CPD of training that you've worked your way through. However, as I said, if you're well abridged with legislation, but you think, I need to just check what the permissible limits were for hazardous waste, what do I need to do for hazardous waste? I can click on the hazardous waste section here. Now the system remembers where I left off, so I'm just going to move backwards a little bit because I was reading the last page previously. So within this section, for example, in terms of using it as a quick reference tool, I've got links to public registers there for hazardous waste if I want to check that I'm using approved carriers and facilities. I've got a list of all the regulations that include hazardous waste. So I might want to look at those and click on those and look at the legislation themselves. So again, as a quick reference tool, that's quite handy. And again, at the end of that is another quiz that I can take. So we can give logins for different parts of the system. We could give a login just for the training sections if there were people in the business that perhaps don't have much of an idea at this stage of waste legislation. They could use it as a training tool. And we can give logins to people just to either upload the data in the performance tracking tools. That might be a financial person, as I indicated earlier, and they can all be given and set restricted views for what they can see. So I think that gives you an overview. We've talked about the training packages just now. I've talked about the compliance aspects, the various other things of policy, strategy, and KPIs the system can do, which I'm not going to look at today, but if you do want to have a look at that in more detail, get in contact, and I'm happy to take you through that on a one-to-one basis. And I've also got monitoring and reporting that we've looked at, and of course, your document storage. So all that's left for me to talk to you about today is really the packages that Valpak have on offer. So for the whole system, that's the training, compliance, and the improvement sections, as well as document control. The whole system is based on an annual subscription for one site and one user, and the cost is £3,000 a year. Now, if you're new to this and actually you think at this stage I'm just looking at the compliance function and the training function, and I'm not quite ready to deal with looking at my performance and setting targets, then we can offer just those compliance elements and training elements for half the price for £1,500 a year. It's also worth noting that we've got a number of offers running at the moment. So if you do have less than 250 employees in your organisation, please let us know, talk to us about that, and we might be able to find a budget more suitable to you, depending on which aspect of the system you're looking at using within your organisation. Equally, if you've got multi-sites, large multi-sites, please ask us for a bespoke quote on those. It's also worth noting that at the moment we have an offer running in which anybody buying the full package at the £3,000 price, we include 2 days setup. So we recognise there's a bit of time involved in you entering your waste streams and your information. If you want to pass that information to us, we'll do the manual bit. So we include 2 days consulting time to help get you set up and running as efficiently and quickly as possible. Okay, so I think that's about it from me on the webinar. I'm more than happy to take any questions. I can see that I've already got one that's popped up here about data security. So if you want to ask me any questions, please do so now. So to answer this question from somebody earlier about data security, Valpak are ISO 27001, which means that we handle your data in accordance with that accreditation standard. So any data you provide to us, we guarantee the integrity of that and the protection of that data. So logins, for example, or any data you might pass to us to upload on your behalf is all covered by Valpak's policies. Now, this is a cloud-based system, but we do have daily backups onto a server, and that server provider also has 27001 accreditation. So your data is in safe hands. As I said, it is your IP as well, so you can take that data with you whenever you like, and your login means, being a cloud-based system, you can log in from anywhere. Okay. Any other questions? I've got one coming in about sites, multi-sites. So we would normally do a bespoke quote on multi-sites, but just to give you an idea, if you have up to 6 sites, it's £4,500. And over and above that, additional sites would be costed at around about £300 a site. Someone else here is saying, so how do we sign up? So the process, after this webinar, I'll circulate the recording of this for your records. And on that will also be my email address. If this is of interest to you and you think this could really be helpful in your role, of course, I'm happy to explore it more with you if you want more time to look at it in more detail. Otherwise, I'm more than happy to write you a bespoke quote. We'll get you a quote and we'll get you a proposal as well, which you'll need to sign. That's the terms and conditions for you to sign for the service. And that should all take, depending on how quickly you can get that signed and back to us, no more than a couple of days to get you set up and running. Okay, well, I think that's about it. I don't think I've got any more questions coming in. If you do think of anything else, my email is going to be on that email that's coming around to you for attending the webinar today. So feel free to drop me a note or to ring the Valpak main number. My name's Stephanie Haynes, and I'm more than happy to speak to you at any time. I hope that's been helpful to you, and thank you for attending.